The Decibel Sauv Blanc is the bread and butter. We just did a nice post on Instagram about that on Sauvignon Blanc Day. So yeah, I mean, you've had these wines over the years. So where does the Decibel, and some, you're upstate New York. It's become a little bit of a staple in a couple places up there. What are your questions about the Sauvignon Blanc, and what do you think?
Well, I think it's it's the first wine I think we brought up here to upstate New York. I'm going to open my glass and get
Yes,
that
do it. Get in on it.
And to be honest with you, being so close to the Finger Lakes, a lot of people here, grow up knowing Rieslings and some Gewürztraminers, and the German whites are very good here in the Finger Lakes. So when I showed up with the Sauvignon Blanc, people were like, I don't really know that. I usually drink, Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, like, what is this thing? And then I just try it. And everybody I've given it to is just like, that might be my new favorite wine. And it really has become a favorite, especially at Kitty Hoynes here in Syracuse. It goes so well with their menu, whether it's linguine and clams, mussels, even their fish and chips. Or if you're just going there for, going to the pub, it's just a great glass by itself. And probably one of the most impressive things that I've heard from so many people about it is, especially even from other Sauvignon Blanc drinkers, it's very different. It's not that, it doesn't have that grassy kind of thing. It's much more fruit flavor.
Not as tightly wound up as the Marlboro styles, like what we like
Yeah.
to say. And even some of the California ones are really focused on that green thing, and we're more focused on the tropical thing from Hawke's Bay. So, and I noticed that right when I came to Hawke's Bay, the first weekend I was here, I was going around to different wineries in this little wine festival they had, and a lot, the big focus in the region is on Bordeaux blends and Syrah and Chardonnay, but pretty much everybody does do a Sauvignon Blanc. And I was like, man, this is really different than the Marlboro style. And as I asked around about it, they said, yeah, domestically, we really like Hawke's Bay Sav, and it ages really well. And, if you think of Hawke's Bay like the Bordeaux of New Zealand, because we grow all those big reds, Sauvignon Blanc is the white varietal and white Bordeaux of Bordeaux. So it fits, but distinctly New Zealand too, really.
Now does everybody in New Zealand have to make Sauvignon Blanc? Is that pretty much the?
No, I think there's plenty of producers in Hawke's Bay that don't. I would say every producer in Marlboro do. Pretty much every producer in Martinborough, if you're not doing just one wine, like just Pinot or just Chardonnay or something, Sauvignon Blanc. And a lot of people export it because the Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is just so unique. But to be honest, once you get south of that, and remember everything's upside down here, so south is colder. Once you get south of like Christchurch, even Wairarapa, there's a lot of people who stop making Sauvignon Blanc and start making Riesling. They might even do some Chardonnay, and it's very cool climate Chardonnay. They might push it with a couple other white varietals, but Sauvignon Blanc still needs that heat. So Marlboro's situated perfect for it. Hawke's Bay is really good for it. But stylistically, there's a big range there. And then once you get north of us, up into the Auckland region, it's too hot. So Gisborne, who does a lot of Chardonnay, it's a bit too sweaty up there. They don't get those intense flavors that we get. So even though we get like the tropical and from the soils, which I'll show you a map in a second, the soil structure that we get gives us this like sort of lemon lime rind thing in the mid palate, gives us that citrus thing. We have our own unique version of the Hawke's Bay style. This is typical version of Hawke's Bay, and we still, I would say almost all Hawke's Bay Sauvignon Blancs have got that melon and, tropical fruit thing to it that is a bit more lush and rich. And it's just because we're slightly warmer here than they are in Marlboro. And then, like anything with wine, it has to do, they talk about terroir. Terroir is not just weather and soil and stuff. It has to do with the group of winemakers and the people here and the way we make it. So, it sort of has to hold up to the red wines that we make, and and we are the premium wine region of New Zealand, the oldest wine region. We make these big classic reds. We can't make these like zippy whites, you know. We have to make pretty serious white wine as well. So that's why we make a lot of great Chardonnay in this region as well. And the Sauvignon Blanc has to fit into that and hold up to it, and it actually ages better. You know, we've just released this 2018 that you're drinking today, because the 17 was the preferred one. And you know, we have like a wine bar here in Hawke's Bay. They were like, don't give us the 18 yet. You know, they wanted to keep drinking the 17, but they've just switched, like right coming out of lockdown this week, because they know the inside scoop and the locals know the inside scoop. Whereas some of the other regions, like, you know, say Marlborough and Martinborough, they want to sell you the fresh, new green one because their style is more like that. We like, you know, so in the States, you'll tend to be a year or two behind that in style. So, yeah, let's have a drink.
Yeah. Well, one thing, maybe you can answer this question for me. When we go out to dinner and we have a couple glasses of this on the table, you actually, it might be the only wine that I've ever been able to just smell continuously as I'm eating dinner. It's so aromatic. Just on the table, you're able to constantly smell it while you're eating dinner. I've never seen anything like it. Is there something unique in what you're doing or the region that gives it that when you open a fresh bottle, I mean,
It's both.
you can
Yeah,
smell across the table, man.
it's both, and there's a few different things there. One is, first and foremost, youngest soils in the world in New Zealand. You know, we the wines are more expressive. Uh, they're bright, they're fresh, they have that kiwi thing that isn't replicated anywhere else in the world. Uh, Screw cap helps. You know, the wines don't get too oxidated and sort of dumbed down, and they don't develop as much as they do under cork. Some people have different opinions on that, but that's just a fact that they stay a little more fresh under that screw cap, and that brightness gets locked in. And then, you know, I think when you make a wine properly, that it should change and develop in the glass. And we do a little trick with using two different yeasts in the same ferment. We kind of let them battle it out. I do a lot of wild ferment, particularly with red wines, and I do wild ferment with barrel fermented Chardonnay. But with the Sauvignon Blanc and the Viognier, which are aromatic whites, and I think the Viognier would probably do a similar thing where it just sits in the glass and keeps, I can smell that from over here.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
Um, you know, it's a little bit by design. So I use inoculated yeast. They are organic strains, but they are specific yeasts that are isolated in a lab and then sold by some companies around. So we use these two. One is meant for texture and the other one is meant for aromatics. And in different years, certain ones, you can't really tell what the heck's going on once a ferment gets going, but we see benefits from both of that. And the wine deceivingly has probably a little more sweetness in there than people realize. Sometimes over 5 grams, which 5 grams is like the threshold for what you would categorize as almost off dry. Anything under that is dry. Some years where, depending on the acidity, we leave, you know, we'll stop the ferment by just chilling the tank down. And we'll leave a little more residual sugar in there if the wine's got really high acid and low pH, which we actually like for Sauvignon Blanc. It gives it structure, it gives it that brightness and freshness. And then the other thing that we do, again, this is a little by design, is we leave a little dissolved CO2 in there. We bottle with quite a high, which is a trick I learned over the years from the Italians. And Italian white wine is my favorite wines in the world, outside of New Zealand wines, of course, is they bottle with just a little bit of hint of effervescence. So when you first open a bottle, particularly if it's a little bit warmer and it's not just totally cold and chilled down, it'll have this like hint of, like, the first glass, you go, was that a little something on my tongue there? And it's like a little, it's not bubbles, but it's just like a little bit of a, like a little spritz on your tongue almost, say, and then it just slowly fades away. But what that does is, after you open the bottle, the oxygen, all those CO2 bubbles that are inside the glass that could be, you know, oxygen could be getting in there and developing the wine, and kind of, then you'd really have to spin it and smell it to get in there. it keeps it fresh. And so that's why wine bars love it, because they'll open it 2-3 days later and go, oh, we opened this 2 days ago and it tastes like I just opened it now. You wouldn't do that. I do it a little bit with the Nouveau style wine, but you wouldn't do it with red wines. And don't really do it with Chardonnay, but these like sort of fresher styles of white wines, it's a neat little trick to do. And I think it makes the wines more enjoyable,
Was the Sauvignon Blanc kind of a pioneer wine when it came to New Zealand, when the first winemakers really kind of started developing New Zealand as a
Started
wine?
really changing in the 80s. The short story is there was a big recession in the 80s in New Zealand, and there was a big war with giant conglomerate wineries, and it all tanked because of some bad players and bad economy and all that kind of stuff. And the government had everybody pull out all their old crap vines, and they were actually paying them money to replant. They had this vine roguing and just pull the vines out and replant with the good stuff. So they had hybrids and crap and weird grape varietals from all over the world, stuff that didn't match New Zealand. People tried this and that and said, no, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, Syrah. And slowly, and what, the irony is those big players who screwed over the industry kind of got forced out by the small and little guys, because our production got so good and premium went up in the 90s. Really, it started getting better, and Sauvignon Blanc just led the way with that. There was some guys in the 70s that knew about Sauvignon Blanc and Marlborough, but really didn't start hitting into the 80s and 90s, and it just exploded all over the world. I think Jancis Robinson, who's arguably the most famous wine writer in the world, her and Robert Parker maybe, and Robert's retired now, so Jancis is slowly taking that void. She made a point that Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is like the first new wine category on its own in like 100 years. It's like you had all those clarets and Syrah, Syrahs, and even if you went single varietal with some of that stuff, it was still like in the same category. Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is just this phenomenon that came out of nowhere, and it's really its own thing. And it's its own category now. And then the rest of the world tries to copy it, and they can't. It's just has to do with our soils here, and our sunlight, which is a big thing. It sort of came in right at the perfect time with new viticulture and new ways to grow vines and modern winemaking. All these type of things sort of hit at the same time. So timing is huge for that.
One of the things I noticed when I was down there, and it was awesome to see, a little bit different than the way things are here in the States. Everywhere we went, we were running into other winemakers, and all you guys are hanging out and telling stories and sharing things and collaborating and working together to make New Zealand wine this own thing, rather than try to slag each other or, critique each other. You guys all like really work together as like one group to really put New Zealand wines on the map. And it's a really cool thing. I don't know if that really exists here in the States.
It does in some ways, but I would say we're small enough, and we're also tough. Like, you're tough enough. If you come to New Zealand to live, even as me as an immigrant, like I went some real tough years there, and jobs are living out in rural New Zealand can be tough. And I think people are just raised in a way that you can take some shit, and there's a healthy competition. Don't get me wrong. Behind all that camaraderie is we like to give each other and push each other in a lot of ways, and that allows for a real healthy dialogue to say, "Oh, mate, this one's off. You missed the mark this year, and well, what did you do?" And we talk honestly about that. In fact, later today, I'm going to go meet up with a bunch of winemaker guys and go have a beer, because it'll probably be the first time we've done it since January, really February, because of harvest and lockdown and all this kind of stuff. So, and there'll be a lot of that chatter that goes on there, but there's absolutely a huge sense that, it's a little bit of this island in the middle of the Pacific against the world, and we've got to make our statement, and we can do this thing, and we're definitely the little guy. It's never going to not be that way. We could quadruple production, and I think we might be 1% of the world's wine production. So we have to make really good wines in order to compete. We can't compete on volume and price and all that. So we have to encourage each other, and that's been the funnest part. And I'm all about that. Like, I love the camaraderie and fooling around. There's always going to be those guys who are quietly tickering away in the lab and in their own little winery, and they work with their own special little vineyard and stuff like that. But for the most part, people are like, "What's that guy doing over there? Oh, let's go check it out." All right, and you try to make time. We get busy throughout the year. I think you came at a really good time of year when we had some time to do that type of stuff. And I think with the state of the world, certainly for the next year or so, there's going to be more of that, because we can't go on these business trips anymore. And I'll run into a winemaker. I haven't seen you in a few months. Oh, well, I was in the UK, and then I had to go to the States, and I was back with my family for 2 weeks, and we were busy this, and then we went on holiday, and there's not going to be that for a while. So there's going to be even more of turning in and really focusing on our production a lot more, and our mates.
Yeah, it was really cool too, seeing how many people besides yourself came from so far away because they were passionate about what was going on in New Zealand. We met people from all over the world, that were down in New Zealand working in some capacity. Some of them were great winemakers in France and came all the way to New Zealand to do a lower end job, but to learn a different style and then go back to France and do another vintage. I mean, it's really a cool thing, because some of these people can work 2 vintages in 1 year and really, learn what they, what
Yeah,
they're
they hone
passionate.
their skills. Yeah, they can hone their skills really quick that way. I did a bit of that back and forth with California. But as far as other people coming here, you know, my friends, UK, Canada, France, Italy, uh, Netherlands, South America, so Argentina, Chile. Every year we get this interaction with these people. Plenty of Aussies here, of course. We always messing with those guys from across the ditch. And for a lot of people, particularly in the northern hemisphere, in places like France and Italy, and to a degree in the New World, in the U.S. and South America and Canada and stuff, they see New Zealand as this new frontier, and they see a lot of possibilities there. It's still a young industry. There's still opportunity here. It's tough. It's not, you won't get paid as much as you get paid if you go work in California or somewhere, or maybe Italy or something. But there's not as much laws. There's not as much, pedigree there, or family history like there. In Italy, I was with this winemaker in Piemonte, and I gave her a bottle of my Pinot, and she just like melted. She goes, I don't even have to drink this, and I love it already. I said, why is that? And she goes, well, first of all, you have a screw cap, and I just spent 50,000 euros on corks, and I don't know if they're going to be great. But then she said, your label, like it's different, it's artistic. It's, everybody in Italy and France and Germany, they have to put the family name and this and that. And God forbid you go outside of that, you might be thrown out of the appellation or something. So, marketing wise, it's fun too, it's wide open as well. But the big thing is the winemaking and the different styles. And, if we want to, we could, plant different varietals here and give it a try. And so there's a lot of Italian and Spanish varietals we're giving a try now, like Albarino and Fiano, and this, different ones from different regions around the world, to just give it a go. And there's definitely that attitude in New Zealand of like, let's give it a go, let's try it out, this is going to be our thing for a while, and if it doesn't work, we'll start over and try it again, or my kids will try it. Oh, the
I love
18.
drinking this wine at the pub in the summertime or springtime. This always makes me think of a day like what you're experiencing right now. Nice blue skies, sun is out. We don't get a ton of that here in Syracuse, but when I do sip it, I get nostalgic, and I always, I trick my brain in that it is a nice, glorious sunny day.
Don't worry, it'll be freezing cold here in about an hour or two. We're at peak warmth right now. It's almost 2:00 in the afternoon here. I had a call earlier, and my call started off with a snow hat and a scarf, and everything next to me was frosted. and that's just it. You know, we don't really get snow here in Hawke's Bay, but we get these really cold mornings, you know, and this goes all the way into the spring. But by midday, you know, it's, you know, right now it's, that sun makes it feel like it's 70 plus degrees. It's probably only the high 50s right now. But there's a big swing because of that. So I'll probably have a nice little burn. I didn't put my sunblock on and listen to those, you know, public service announcements they always have on the radio and everything to wear your sunblock, mate, you know?
Well, we're a couple of days away from Memorial Day, and we had snow here last week.
Oh,
And
great.
then today almost 80 degrees.
Oh.
So it's bipolar here. It's
Yeah.
nuts. It's
But I mean, if that brings up another topic of, you know, people say, what's climate change? I don't know if it's hot or, you know, historically Hawke's Bay has always been pretty hot and dry, and they've had these classic Hawke's Bay dry summers, but we definitely historically are experiencing more incidents, more, you know, we had a huge hail thing this spring that knocked out some vineyards, Chardonnay block right next to my house, completely decimated.
wow.
And you know, when it is a pattern of a cyclone season, instead of getting one, we might get two or three, or, you know, one and a couple little ones, we might get two or three really significant ones like we had in 2017. So yeah, that's been interesting to watch here in Hawke's Bay. So or in New Zealand, and I guess throughout the world. France, Burgundy's been, you know, frosted and hailed, and they've had a lot of issues too. So again, a good opportunity for New Zealand wine, New Zealand Pinot and Chardonnay. So
Well, it's messed up here too in the Finger Lakes because we had frost last week, you know, so that really messes up, you know, a lot of things for some
do
people.
they have a
So,
lot of frost protection up there? Do they have like wind fans and
no,
sprinklers?
they put the wind fans. They rely on, you know, the way the Finger Lakes are situated, you know, because there's basically these big hills between each lake, so there is a breeze that's usually coming through, but you know, so they are somewhat protected naturally, but you know, to have a frost this late when things are budding and everything, I guess it messed a lot of things up. Same thing with a lot of the cider companies that, you know, use all the apples up here to make, I mean, it's a huge industry.
Yeah.
So they actually had to scrap some of that and change gears and go right into making hand sanitizer with it. So that's what a lot of people are doing up here. A lot of the wineries and cider houses are all making hand sanitizer for people right now. It's crazy. Now
So
this one here, if it was an instrument, I was talking about this with Gina. If it was an instrument, I would think a ukulele.
yeah, nice. All right,
Yeah.
I'll use that. Why is
A
that?
couple reasons. One, kind of like it's just like a feel-good wine, and it always kind of reminds us of like spring is coming or warmth. So the ukulele is always kind of that kind of like party instrument,
Totally.
you know. So it's kind of funny. Like I would say in some ways it's like the way somebody might be intimidated by the guitar. You show them the ukulele and you're like, listen, this is pretty versatile. It goes with anything. You can play it by yourself. You can play it with other people. You know, you can play it live. You don't have to be an experienced musician to learn how to play it and appreciate it. And it's a great gateway to get into other things. So I've turned a lot of people onto this wine that are drinking tons of wine now because of this wine.
Yeah.
So,
oh, that's perfect. I'll definitely say that'll be part of the edit. Is that's a perfect comparison. Well, cool, man. I think we'll probably leave it there. I'll let you. What did you have for dinner tonight?
oh yeah, I'll show you what I got here. I got a little couple of my favorite things to have. Little
mussels,
pasta, hot oil with some mussels.
Oh man.
Probably the best mussels I ever had were in Auckland.
Oh, those big green ones.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. But yeah, so this is great, man. Decibel, 2018 Sauv Blanc. Can't say enough great things about it. And man, your work in this is just phenomenal. It's I'm proud to be a part of it. Proud to be your friend, and it's great, man. Awesome.
Cheers, man. Toast.
Cheers.
Hi to Gina.
You bet, man. Take care.